Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Jamie Dean, and on this week's Gaming Pickups, I'm going to answer the question, is it possible to get a near mint, complete in box, Nintendo 64 game for less than $25? It's a bit of a rhetorical question, you can probably guess the answer, but let me show you. Alright, before we get into that, let's get into some other pickups that I found this week, starting off with not a game, but a game-related piece that I've been looking for since I moved into this new game room and I wanted to get some art on the walls. I finally discovered a piece that I wanted to have, and that is this poster of Street Fighter 2. Now, it's going to be very awkward to show you this thing in front of the webcam, so I'm going to overlay. You're probably looking at some overlay footage of it in all its glory now. It's like one of those old vintage style Street Fighter pieces with that old sort of watercolor art. I absolutely love those old Street Fighter, that old aesthetic that you see on the old covers of the games and old pieces of art and in art books and that sort of thing. I think it looks fantastic. So this is not an original, obviously. This is a reproduction, and I just want to give a quick shout out here, not something that I usually do, but I want to give a shout out to Cult Graphics on eBay, who I bought this through. This is actually the second version of this poster that I got from them, and the first version showed up and it was kind of blurry. Like you could see that it was an image that had been enlarged beyond its capacity, and it blurred the image fairly significantly, and I just wasn't superly happy with it. So I got in touch with them and just said, look guys, this isn't really the quality that I was chasing. What can we do here? To their credit, they literally, not only, like, they didn't give me my money back or anything like that, they literally went back to the source file, re-edited the poster from scratch, reprinted it, and then sent me an updated version of the poster, which looks significantly better, all free of charge. So that was fantastic. They didn't want the blurry one back, so I don't know what I'll do with that. I'll probably pass it on to Scott or see if somebody wants it, if I can find a use for it. But yeah, that was great. So yeah, shout out to Cult Graphics. Always happy to give a bit of a shout out to some good customer service online, because it can be difficult to come by. So yeah, but the quality of the poster is brilliant. Like it's printed on like it's not poster paper. It's more like it's almost vinyl. It's kind of like a halfway point between paper and vinyl almost. I don't know exactly what it is that it's made out of, but it feels really solid and sturdy. I want to get a frame to put it in and then get it up on the wall here next to me. And my plan is to have two of those A1 size posters on the wall here, because I think that'll just fill the space really nicely. It's something that this room has been really lacking ever since I moved in here, was some art on the walls. But yeah, I'm well on my way to getting that done now, and I'm pretty sure I'm already eyeing off other pieces from Cult Graphics that I'd like to have next to that Street Fighter 2 piece. But yeah, super duper happy with that one, and I thought you guys might like to see that. Okay, let's get into some games. So start off with is a few pickups that my mommy found for me just at her local secondhand stores where she lives. We'll just fly through these really, really quickly. So we picked up Batman Arkham Origins. And this is, as far as I'm aware, all complete. Yes. Complete in its box. I'm fairly sure that challenge pack code has been used, but that was a nice little find. Surprisingly valuable game, actually, when I checked out the prices of this one and what it resells for. Yeah, I that was very, very surprising. Of all the pickups I've got from her, this is probably the most valuable one, and I did not expect that to be the case. I thought it would be this next one, which is also on the 360, Dark Souls. So again, all complete in the case. Nice condition. And the last of which is one that I'm actually really tempted to keep and put on the shelf. These were given to me for some, like, you know, resale fodder to put into the kitty to buying games that I want on the shelf. I'm very tempted to keep this one and put it on the shelf. I don't think I will, but I'm tempted. And that is The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings, and it's the enhanced edition. This is a nice heavy case too. Nice big chunky manual, multiple discs. So yeah, some good little finds there from Mother Dear. Thank you very much. So they're going to go in the resale pile. Now, on to my pickups for this week. Stuff that is actually going on the shelf. And I've got some really good stuff. Really, really happy with the things I found this week. This first one is one that probably nobody else watching this is going to give a shit about whatsoever, except for one person, and that's my co-host Dominic, because I found out that he also played this growing up, and he's the only other person I've ever met that has heard of, not just heard of, but also played this game, and that is Heavy Gear 2. Now, Heavy Gear 2 is probably like an Armored Core, is probably the closest thing to Heavy Gear. I think it's probably more Armored Core than Mech Warrior. It's, you know, giant robots fighting other giant robots and military units in that sort of very sort of Armored Core Mech Warrior style. You know, you're in the suit piloting the vehicle. This one, I don't know if it ever had a manual, because it's just got installation instructions just printed on the inside of the case there. I'm going to guess that it probably didn't. But yeah, great game. Really, really good game. Surprisingly fun. And the big conceit that I remember with Heavy Gear was that your mechs had, like, I don't know what to call them, skates, for lack of a better term, like sort of like air rollerblades, where they could skim along at a really good pace, a really good clip. And there was kind of an art to mastering the handling of your suit while it was on these air skates. And if you could master it, you could just get around like a fucking ninja. It was awesome. But yeah, really, really fun game. This was like a bargain bin, sort of $1 or $2, technology store kind of game, like Harvey Norman, JB Hi-Fi, those sorts of stores. You would find this in those bargain bins, those clearance bins, all the time. So at some point, my dad decided to pick it up and take a run at it. And yeah, I'm glad he did, because it's a really, really good little game. I don't know if it holds up terribly well. It's sort of in that era where, the three-dimensional graphics probably are a little worse for wear these days. I don't know if you can see some of the screenshots very well on the back of the box. But she's a bit blocky. But at the time, it looked good. It played well, had a really good frame rate. I remember that as well. Yeah, just a solid little mech battling game if you liked those sorts of games, like in the style of Armored Core, but you wanted to get a game like that for $1 or $2. Right there, Heavy Gear. Surprised that it's Heavy Gear 2. I'd never heard of this. This is the only one I ever owned, was Heavy Gear 2. Never played Heavy Gear 1, never even saw Heavy Gear 1. So I'd be interested to go and track that down and see if I can find it as well, just to have a look at what it looked like, look at some screenshots or something. But yeah, 60-second century combat. Heavy Gear 2. Good little mech game, that one. So yeah, shout out to Dom there, my Heavy Gear brother. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Now, this is actually something that I have wanted for far, far longer than I've been doing this game collecting thing. I've wanted this for, gosh, well over a decade, and I've never really just pulled the trigger on it. I've never been in a position where I could, or I've never been able to find it, because it's not an easy thing to come across these days. This is something that is super special to me. It's a DVD box set of one of my absolute favorite shows of all time. And I love it. I love it to bits. I love the show. I love the graphic novels. I love everything about it. And that is The Adventures of Tintin. Yeah, I was so happy to find this. I have wanted a hard copy of Tintin for so long, because it is a very, very difficult show to find in all of its entirety. It skips around. Sometimes it's on Netflix, sometimes it's not. When it's not on Netflix, you can't really find it anywhere else. Again, that transient nature of streaming, I just wanted to make sure I had a hard copy of something that was so meaningful and so important and so special to me on the shelf that I could just pick up and watch at any time. I'm guessing that this probably had a slip cover at some point that is missing from this particular copy. Maybe, I don't know for sure. But it's got all these wonderful drawings. And as we unfold it, I'll take some footage to play over the top so you can see this in a bit better detail, because me holding up to the camera is going to be awkward because it folds out for quite a long way. And it's a big old, what do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 disc set. They're all there. Unfortunately, there is some there is some writing on disc 1. I can't even, I don't know what it says. It's just random numbers and letters. So I don't know what that's about, whether it's like, this was the closest thing when someone was on a phone and needed to write down a reference number or something like that. And that's like, oh, let me just scribble it on this Tintin disc. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, yeah, really, really happy to have this one. It needs a good clean. It needs a really good clean. It's quite grubby. It's starting to come apart. But I got it for a really good price, very, very cheap. And yeah, I'm just rapt to have it. Especially like finding this in a Region 4 box as well was not easy to do. So getting it in a format that was playable, brilliant. And I fucking like, if you haven't watched Tintin, right? If you like Indiana Jones, if you like Uncharted, if you like Tomb Raider, if you like those sort of like high adventure, real world with a little bit of the supernatural every now and then thrown in, chasing ancient relics and going through ruins and that sort of thing, you will like Tintin. And if you watched Tintin or read Tintin growing up like I did religiously, I encourage you to go back and have another look at this as an adult. There are themes in this that I'm surprised they were allowed to play on like primetime kids television. Like he's dealing with like opium rings, drug smugglers, like the whole deal. All that shit would have gone straight over my head as a young 7, 8 year old boy. But as an adult, I was like, damn, Tintin doesn't fuck around with the company he keeps. Yeah, fucking great. Just great period piece, that 1930s, 40s, 50s, that kind of era. High, you know, that height of that adventure exploration kind of genre. Yeah, I fucking adore Tintin. I love the show. I love the graphic novels. I own several of them. I'd like to own a full set if I can. But yeah, very, very happy to have this one on the shelf finally. Okay, now, let's get to my big old bargain Nintendo 64 find. To answer the question, can I get a near mint copy of a Nintendo 64 game complete in box for less than $25? It's not easy, okay? Forget the near mint and forget the complete in box. It is not easy getting any condition boxed Nintendo 64 game for less than $30. But I managed to do it this week, impressively enough. And I'm pretty happy with my purchase. I'm very happy with my purchase. It's the reason this is cheap is because it's not a particularly well-loved game. I don't even particularly love it all that much. But I'm not going to pass up Nintendo. I've said this before. I'm not going to pass up Nintendo boxed anything for that sort of money. So the game I picked up for the whole massive amount of $23 is Mission Impossible for the Nintendo 64. Yeah, an absolute score. Now, there is, I say near mint, there's a few, you can probably see it if I hold it. There's a little bit of there it is, a little bit of a crease on one side of the box cover there, a little bit of a dent. But other than that, like the corners are immaculate, the edges are sharp, there's no fraying. It's really, really good condition. Like, it's probably the best condition Nintendo 64 game on my shelf by a significant margin, I would say. And it's all there. Now, this, I remember renting this out, actually, and being fairly disappointed with it when I got it home to play it. There we go, cart in original insert. And we have our, again, beautiful condition manual. Really, really nice. The whole thing, yeah, just is in really good nick. Again, for $23, that's like, it's crazy. It's crazy. You can't get like cartridges, you know, often for that kind of price. Loose carts, let alone this quality boxed game. I was fairly disappointed with it when I hired it out because I think, you know, it wasn't a very well-loved game. I think it had a lot of development issues. I haven't looked into it too closely. I just remember there being a little bit of an advertising push in magazines when this came out. I think it had very mixed quality. I think there were parts of the game that were really, really good, and there were parts of the game that were really, really terrible. And so it was a little bit of a roller coaster ride to actually play. But honestly, I think the biggest issue with Mission Impossible was that GoldenEye existed. And that was going to be the case for not just this game, but anything that was even remotely a shooter of any kind was going to get compared to GoldenEye during GoldenEye's heyday. You know, like one of the greatest games for that system and one of the greatest games I think ever made, especially in that genre, that still holds up all these years later. That's a big mountain to climb, man. Like that's a big opponent to go up against if you're going to release a game in a, like, especially like another spy game to go up against GoldenEye. You better have your shit together. And unfortunately, Mission Impossible just came off very much second best. It was a third-person shooter, not a first-person shooter. I think when I hired it out, I was expecting sort of like a more stealth-based GoldenEye, like a more, you know, Splinter Cell-esque maybe, like, but in a first-person sort of perspective. And yeah, I did not get that. I didn't realize it was a third-person game. I didn't realize it was going to be like, some of the missions are very, very slow. And again, going from the very high go, shoot, high-octane gameplay of GoldenEye to something like this, it was a little bit of a whiplash. So yeah, I remember playing it for the however much time that I had it rented out for, but taking it back to the store going, well, I don't think that one's going to come home with me again. But yeah, I'd be very curious to see what this is like now, you know, like removed from the shadow of GoldenEye and looked at as its own game, what I would think of it if I tried it these days. So maybe that's something I'll go back and do at some point. But yeah, there we go. Mission Impossible. Expect the impossible. Lovely cover. Nice striking red cover. Again, beautiful condition. Really, really happy with that. There was no way on God's green earth that I was going to walk past that one for $23. So yeah, very, very happy to have that in the collection for sure. And like I said, like that entire era, the Nintendo 64 era, is the system that is most nostalgic to me. And there's no game on that system that doesn't hold some nostalgic place, because they all sort of contribute to the vibe of that console, if you know what I mean. Like, you would read about those games that you either didn't like or didn't play in magazines, and you would see them in video stores, and you would talk about them with your friends, or they'd talk about them to you if they had played them and you haven't. Like, it's sort of like it all amalgamates into painting a picture of a period of time in my life, and it doesn't really matter which game it is. Like, obviously, there's games that I hold in far higher esteem than others, but there's not really any Nintendo 64 games that I'm going to turn my nose up at to have on the shelf, because they all remind me of that period of time. Unlike, you know, pretty much any other console, it's that one exclusively. Okay, let's have a look at a couple of others. I've got some more Nintendo 64, actually, to go on the shelf while we're on that topic. I've got two more pickups to show you for this week. Both of them are Nintendo 64 pickups. The first one I didn't play, but I watched Scott play on the channel very, very recently, and we had an absolute blast, and that was Turok 2 Seeds of Evil. Now, this is not a game that I played originally back in the day. I played the first Turok, was fairly disappointed. Again, had expectations that were whew, that was a rough that was a rough experience on the first one, and it did not meet my little dinosaur loving expectations, unfortunately. But Turok 2, so yeah, having had that experience with Turok, I never tried to play Turok 2. From what I can tell, just watching Scott play the game, it looks like a far better, more polished version of. You know, it's one of those, like, the sequel looks like it's the better game for sure, I think, anyway, in my opinion. This is remembering the experience I had with the original Turok. I haven't played it recently to do a direct comparison or anything. But yeah, I had a great time sitting in with Scott while he tried to tackle this game that had been the bane of his existence in his younger years, that had just squashed him repeatedly and completely. So going back and revisiting that and seeing him conquer that game that he found so difficult in his youth was really, really cool. And it was just a really fun night. You can go back and watch that video on the channel. Holy shit, the levels in this game are fucking huge. Like, you would not want to have to be somewhere quickly if you fire old Turok 2 up. Like, you are in for the long fucking haul. That might have the biggest levels and the longest levels I've ever seen in a video game. We played for, God, it must have been over 2 hours. And that was just one level. It was absolutely batshit crazy. So, yeah, a bit of a marathon, but all the same, it looked like a hell of a lot of fun, and I had a hell of a lot of fun sitting in with that one. So, Turok 2, Seeds of Evil, again, another sort of classic of the console, a classic of that era, and another one that I was happy to pick up for a good price and have on the shelf. It's in fairly good nick. I'll give you a look at the insides real quick. It's got the nice black Turok 2 cartridge. Look at that. That's fucking cool, man. And we've got the manual, also in really good nick. I think the only issue with this one, really, it needs a bit of a cleanup, and you can see there was a sticker that I've had a go at removing. It's left some residue on the cover there, just here, as you can see. But I'm fairly confident I'm going to be able to get rid of that with a little bit of magic. I think that'll come off very, very easily. So I think once I've cleaned that up, give it a good clean in general, that's going to look $1 million in a box protector on the shelf. And yeah, having that iconic black cartridge in the collection, I'm pretty happy with that as well. So nice one, Turok 2. And my last pickup for the week is an interesting one, actually, because I owned and loved this game back in the day, but I was the only one who seemed to know it even existed. And I don't know if that was just my insular little, sphere that I inhabited, and outside of that sphere it was actually a really, really well-loved, really popular game. But it was just weird, me being the only one who cared about this game or even knew that it existed. But it's made its way to the Switch Online service recently. So for them to put that up, it must have had some sort of popularity and some sort of weight to it. It must hold some kind of nostalgia for people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered putting up this particular title. So yeah, I'll be interested to see if anybody else has played this and loves it as much as I did when I had it back in the day. It's another Rareware game. Man, the Nintendo 64 was just their fucking system, I tell you. And that is Jet Force Gemini. So I think by far not Rare's most popular game on the console. And Rare had just hit after hit after hit after hit on the Nintendo 64. If you like Rare as a developer, if you played the Super Nintendo and played some of their titles, like the old Donkey Kong Countries, that sort of thing, and you've never played any of their 64 library, you need to go and do that, because they were in their fucking element during those years. And this was another really, really good one. And another very different title from things that they'd done before as well. Yeah, they could do no wrong on that console. This was a very linear third-person shooter. I remember it being quite difficult in places, actually. But I loved it. I thought it was fun. I thought the multiplayer was fun. I loved the look of it. The aesthetic, the art style. Yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. I just remember it being quite a difficult game, at least back then for me. But yeah, I was the only one who had it. Nobody knew what it was. No one had heard of it. There we got our nice manual. And there we go. Cart. In insert. Lovely. Now this is this an aftermarket insert? I think it might be, yes. Now, I just want to take a quick moment, and I've talked about this before, right? But this particular pickup of mine this week is like a shining example of why it is worth having a conversation with sellers on eBay. If there's something that you want, and it looks like it's been sitting there for a while for sale, and there's no make an offer option, send them a message and make an offer anyway. That's exactly what I did with this. It came with the cartridge, I believe, loose in the box and no manual. And I made an offer that I was happy to pay. I didn't really expect them to accept it because it was a fairly low offer. I was really, again, chasing complete in-box copies of games. So I don't mind Frankensteining one together if I can do it for a really good price. But if I can't, I'd rather just wait and do the complete in-box copy. But on this instance, I thought, you know what, that looks like it's in really good condition. The box is in really good condition. For some reason, Jet Force Gemini seems to be a tricky one to find good quality boxes for. So I sent them an offer of what I was happy to pay, and they accepted it immediately. So I don't know whether they were just keen to get it sold, but it was a price that I wasn't really expecting them to accept. But they did. And here it is. And that means I managed to pick up a manual for the game separately, popped it in an insert, and now I have a complete in-box copy of the game for way less than what a complete in-box version would have cost me had I have shelled out for that in the first place. So, yeah. This is by far probably the best bargain, besides the Mission Impossible. That was a steal. But in terms of like big name titles, although Pokemon Snap behind me here was pretty insane. All right, that might actually take the cake. But second to Pokemon Snap, that pickup, this is probably one of my best bargains I've had through this whole collecting journey. And it came from just getting in touch with the seller and having a conversation to see if, they were interested in an offer that I wanted to make. And as it turns out, they were, and now I have it for a really, really good price. So there we go. Jet Force Gemini. I might go back. I'd like to go back and play this one on Switch Online, actually. This is one I'd like to have another shot at to see if it is as difficult as I remember it being. Those fucking ant aliens, man. But it's just fun. It was just a fun game. Like I said, it's super linear. But if you don't mind that, if you don't mind a third-person linear sci-fi sort of adventure shooter, this was a good one back in the day, and a rare title no less. So you could do a lot worse. But yeah, there it is. Jet Force Gemini, a game I used to own, a game I used to enjoy very much, and a game now I have back on the shelf that I'm happy to have. And that's it. That does it for my pickups for the week. What do you think? Is there anything in that pile there that you played growing up? Anything that you loved? Make sure you drop down the bottom and give us a comment and let us know if you have good memories of playing any of these games. I'd love to hear about them. Otherwise, until the next one, my name has been Jamie Dean, and as always, make sure you keep on side-scrolling. Take care. No way. Oh. Holy shit. That's unreal. Oh my god, it's even better in person. Holy crap.